It's bad. Anime.
Hello, everybody. My name is John.
And I'm a little fishy in the sea.
Yes, you are, little fishy. Dance for me.
Can fishes dance?
I mean, I think this one does. Kinda.
She
does a lot of things.
Yeah, she's magic, and then she's like kind of a lizard at some point. Okay, we should say why we chose Ponyo.
And this is Bad Anime, the show where we decide, is this anime bad? Today, Robert, we are talking about the Miyazaki movie from 2008 or 9, I don't fucking remember, Ponyo.
8 was the Japanese release, 9 would have been the American release, which makes a lot of sense for us, and maybe some feelings going into this Bouncy, because here's what's going on, right, everybody?
Yeah, okay. Tell them what's going on.
Bouncy and I were saying, like, hey, we could, let's go back to Ghibli, because all we did so far was Princess Mononoke. And, you know, I had nothing about Ghibli, essentially.
Yes.
And Bouncy like, man, maybe we could just pick a film that interests us the most. I'm like, that's a good idea, but not in the spirit of the show we're doing. So let's pick something that interests us the least.
And you know, that honestly, it made you completely correct. And I can't believe I didn't see it before then. I can't believe that I suggested something. Let's watch something that we want to the most. Yeah. I can't believe I did that. How dare I, honestly.
But the thing is, well, no, you used the logic for 3 episode rules.
Yes,
that's what we do for that sub-program within our general
program.
Program here. So naturally, I thought back like, what anime annoyed me before I even saw it? And a 2009 release makes sense for us because we would have been 14, 15 around that time.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And even though we were transitioning out of like children's media, we still would have seen marketing for it or heard it in the popular zeitgeist. Yep. And I remember the ads for Ponyo being everywhere.
I remember them being everywhere, and I remember them being very annoying to the point where I was like, oh, yeah, that, I'm definitely not going to watch that. And I didn't until, like, last week.
Until we said, you know what, this is a show called Bad Anime. I've never heard anyone say anything about Ponyo because, as we can tell, this is meant for very little children.
It very much is. And the ratings, I will say, I kind of looked up. I didn't really read a synopsis or anything because I was just curious. I always just thought, I didn't even know what it was really about. I just always remember the cover of like the words Ponyo, and it looked like a little girl like in the water or something.
I actually remembered a few frames of animation that they played the fuck out of in the trailers.
Oh, really?
So when I saw them here, I'm like, I recognize that.
Yeah. Although, like, the ratings for this movie have been quite well received, I imagine because of the childhood nature of the marketing and of the movie itself. Honestly,
well, the thing is, though, how many people just saw Ghibli and said, well, I can't call a Ghibli film bad, so I'm not going to?
I guess. I mean, this kind of goes between... I don't know.
You're like, I will.
This kind of like occupies a weird territory in Ghibli films, though, because it has all the things that make Ghibli films very like magical and good, as well as like visuals.
Well, good is a subjective term.
Yes, but in terms of just like lining up with other ones, like Spirited Away or Princess Mononoke, or it's a little more geared towards children.
Like this is made for small children.
Like I was surprised when we watched Princess Mononoke. When we watched Princess Mononoke, I was so surprised at how kind of like a lot of blood there was. I was like, oh wow, okay, I didn't know they really did that, huh? Okay, interesting. And this one, of course, had fish.
And the weird thing is there was a little plot point with like Ponyo, our cute little fish girl, tasting human blood. And I'm
that was interesting.
There was a couple weird moments here where the film got like adult for a split second, when like our main character Shosuke's mom gets frustrated her husband isn't coming home from the dock, so she grabs a beer out of the fridge. I'm like, we're just not going to address that, are we, movie? We're just going to move on and pretend this didn't happen.
I think that always happened for maybe like 2 seconds, and the film realized what it was, and then it was like, never mind. It
almost felt like a fumble, and them going, oh shit, we're meant for kids.
But the funny part about all those is that those specific moments, like Ponyo sucking blood out of Sosuke, and also the mom like having a beer because her husband isn't coming home, those 2 moments could have made far more interesting of a movie to me than they ended up making.
Well, exactly.
Which is interesting because they did manage to, with a few blips there, keep that kind of childish tone throughout the entire movie, essentially.
It's very evident that this was made for Japanese children because, again, like Japanese children are like children's media in Japan, I should say, are just not nearly as afraid of certain subject matters like we are in the West, especially when it comes to death and acknowledging more adult things. You don't have to dive into them, but it's like, hey, these are things we see adults do. Those are usually more prevalent in media.
Right.
It's very telling, of course, that kids can look at the Sapporo logo and know exactly what that is. That's a little frightening, maybe. I'm not sure. Then again, as an American, I know what Bud Light looked like when I was a kid. So
yeah, I mean, Bud Light commercials are everywhere. You see them when you're a kid.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
I still see Bud Light. I still drink Bud Light.
I know you do.
Oh, isn't that crazy how now that's actually a political stance? I'm like, guys.
I know. Guys, it's pea water. Can we can we not communicate over this that way?
Well, that's the thing. Honestly, that's probably, has that died yet? Because I think it hasn't.
I think it has. I haven't seen as much. I'm very internet all the time, and I even haven't really seen much about it since like the whole quote unquote controversy last year.
I never saw it on the internet. I saw it in public.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no,
at bars and stuff?
Yeah.
Oh. Huh. Weird.
Yeah, places where you see exclusively Bud Light, you didn't anymore. And I'm just like, okay. I mean, granted, I live in Long Island, New York, so it's a very up and down. Like, it's red and blue depending on like which part of a county you're in, not even the county.
Yep.
And I'm just like, I really wish this wasn't a political thing now. It's a not good beer. It's better than some of the stuff that I drink.
End of sentence.
Still, yeah. It's one of the lowest rung beers there is. I mean, I drink Natural Light, so I can't insult Bud Light that much.
But you've made your decision. You have your choice.
Well, the thing is, why waste money on like if you're gonna buy low tier beer, buy low tier beer. If you're gonna go high with your beer, highbrow, go highbrow. Don't go somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, buy a nice beer.
Ponyo's a fish.
Ponyo is a fish, except for when she's not a fish.
Except for when she tastes human blood and then wants to be human.
Then takes on human elements, but also is a frog somewhere in the middle.
There's a frog in the middle.
This is like a very complex
theory of evolution,
riddle.
Baby.
Yeah, honestly, it's like a very complex riddle. Like, what is a fish in water, a human outside of water, and a frog in between?
Do you remember when I used to ask you guys riddles all the time because I got very back into 60s Batman, and then after a while you guys would just say butt hair. It's like, what? Yeah, butt hair.
You mean ball hair? Ball hair. Yeah, I believe the riddle for that was what does no man want to have but no man wants to lose?
Yeah.
Ball hair. I mean, it's a great answer. Yeah, I don't even remember what the actual answer was.
Well, the answer was very dependent on the context of that episode of Batman, and the answer was lawsuit.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right. I remember it being something more like,
ball hair.
Administrative instead of ball hair, but we made it ball hair, and I remember it as ball hair.
Well, that's the thing. It's like when a riddle is that vague, the answer could really be anything.
So Sosuke,
Sosuke's a 5-year-old dude.
Sosuke's a 5-year-old, and he finds this fish. Her name is
human face.
Yeah, and he names her Ponyo.
There's a weird underwater,
like Atlantis sort of thing.
Wizard doctor with the worst casting I've ever heard.
Oh my God, Liam Neeson plays the wizard doctor. Fujimoto, I believe his name was.
I mean, it didn't fit the character even remotely.
Not at all. But my God, was this voice cast fascinating for the English dub.
Well, the English dub actually had, like, if you read the list of talent here, was phenomenal. This was 2009 when it came out here in the States.
Yep.
And I heard a lot of them immediately. It took me a couple seconds to realize that Shosuke's mom was Tina Fey. I'm like, okay, cool. Shosuke himself is like the 4th Jonas brother, the youngest one.
Frankie Jonas.
Frankie Jonas, and I'm sorry, Frankie, I didn't know you existed beforehand. It would really suck if Frankie listened to this.
It's very funny that, like, the main characters are the less famous sibling of very famous people.
Yeah, and the other one is a Noah Cyrus.
Yeah, Miley Cyrus's sister.
Like,
his voice is Ponyo. But I'll tell you what I really enjoy about this. If you Google the Ponyo voice cast, you will get all of these insane star names in America. And it's Liam Neeson, Noah Cyrus, Matt Damon, Kate Blanchett, Tina Fey, Betty White, Frankie Jonas.
Cloris Leachman's in there.
Yes, and all these like very famous people, and then you scroll down to see the Japanese voice cast, and they're just very much Japanese children. Yeah. It's like Ponyo is voiced by Noah Cyrus, but in the Japanese version, Ponyo is voiced by Yuria Nara, who is legitimately looks like an 8-year-old girl.
Yes.
So there are some big dichotomies here. I think, you know what this was? It was probably like a big play to get a lot of viewership for this movie in the States. I'm sure it worked because they marketed it like crazy, but the voice cast was it really went off here, but I wouldn't say the voices were that good, but the star power was really great.
Well, think about it, like, because it was Disney was handling the distribution here in the West, so they're like, oh, we saved so much money by actually not having to make the movie. Let's spend a ton of money on marketing and a ton of money on the casting, which is genius. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is genius here. But like you said, some of the voices were literally just the voices. Betty White voiced one of the elderly women in the nursing home that fucking Shosuke's mom works at for some reason. Yeah, and that was nice to hear. Cloris Leachman was one of them too. I'm like, why?
Why?
You could have saved the money.
Yeah, that was very interesting. But they really blew out the cast. But in
you know
terms
what was really
of,
interesting, Bouncy?
What was?
How like nothing happened for like the first hour of the movie.
Nothing happened. Nothing. Absolutely not. I was just gonna get to the plot because right in the beginning of the movie, Sosuke, like, you kind of have an idea of like what Sosuke's life is. Sosuke and his mom live in this house. Their dad is like a ship guy, like a captain. Yeah. And he's off like sailing all the time.
Yeah.
And they're together. And it's just kind of like, at least for what I would say the first hour of the movie is, it's just like the straight up as exposition could possibly get for as long as you could make it.
Yeah, no, exactly. This particular one, this particular film, more so than anything maybe we've ever covered, reminded me a lot of what I've talked about before on the show, where like the Japanese story structure, or like, you know, there's more traditional 3-act Japanese play, which is I forget the actual Japanese words, but the translation is slow, rapid end.
Okay.
And this movie is literally a case study. Like this, like this is what you would put in a textbook for Japanese storytelling, because it was it couldn't be more of that. The first hour, because like you said, we know Shosuke's life. You know, dad's at sea. Again, if this was a more interesting film, they would have made a lot of jokes about that. And
they would have.
There could have been like some very interesting play on words, you know, innuendo, stuff like that there. But no, his Tina Fey mom is just sad.
Tina Fey.
Also, the dad is Matt Damon, which is...
Yeah.
He had like 7 lines.
He didn't have any lines at all, but they were like, Matt Damon, do you want like $20,000 for like 1 hour? He did have some
lines, but they were just like, clearly just Matt Damon like showed up. That sounded like he almost phoned them in. I mean, the audio quality wasn't that bad.
I'm sure he did. I'm sure they were just like, hey, Matt Damon, can you like come into the studio and say these things for $100,000? And he was probably like, yeah, whatever. And then I'm sure midway through delivering the lines, he was like, wait, what movie is this for? So it sounds very much just like, he just did it. And that's what all the voices were to me, pretty much.
I mean, none of them were particularly inspired. Like I said, Liam Neeson sounded as good as he could, but this character did not need that voice.
Yeah, no, it did not. And the whole story part of this, where there were a couple things that maybe I didn't understand about this story, to be honest.
Really?
Yes, and I was surprised by that because it's for children.
I mean, but I followed it. It wasn't much of a story here, but I followed it pretty well. I mean,
it was a weird kind of, because you have that entire like underwater kingdom that like the Liam Neeson, Fujimoto.
Just call him Liam Neeson.
I'll call him Liam Neeson.
Call him Leslie Nielsen because that's funny.
Leslie Nielsen. Yeah, Leslie Nielsen has a gigantic underwater aquatic kingdom of fish and science experiments, and he is somehow married to the spirit of the ocean, who's just a big woman.
It's basically what Zero Two morphed into at the end of Darling in the Franxx, but an aquatic version. Yeah,
aquatic waifu.
Yeah, aquatic waifu. Exactly.
Yes. And they're together, and she's kind of like the Mother Nature factor in this scenario. But they're together, right? Okay, so he's trying to like get Ponyo back because Sosuke finds Ponyo and like is with Ponyo and like teaches her like all about humanity, not really, but like through his actions, I guess. And she wants to be a human, to be with Sosuke because he's really nice to her, because nobody ever has been nice to her because she's a fish.
Well, the thing is, like, she's just enthralled by this new world she found, you know?
Yeah, and she wants to be a part of it. She wants to be a human, and she can speak, which Sosuke finds out a little later than I would have thought. But like, she could speak, and they're like hanging out, and then she gets taken back to the underwater, and then like this guy, this Liam Neeson, Leslie Nielsen guy is doing all of these like science experiments and like I'm not sure exactly what he's trying to do, but he's trying to like, I don't know, like make fish fishier, and that was really lost on me. I was like, what is he even doing down there? Is he experimenting on things? Like, is it like he doesn't want like ships to keep polluting the water, which makes sense. But other than that,
there's a whole environmental thing. His whole goal, the thing he said 45 times, is all about maintaining balance.
Oh yeah, right.
So maintaining balance in the world, whatever that means. So I think if I had any assumption, some of it's tied to Japanese folklore. There was the one throwaway line that one of the women, maybe the one voiced by Cloris Leachman, I don't remember who voices this particular character, but the one skeptical older woman character who mentioned something about like taking a fish out of water for too long will cause a tsunami. So, and that sounds super Japanese to me, based on
like a very butterfly effect kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I assume it had something to do with that, because what happened is Ponyo got out of water for too long. However, she should have stayed in the water. So now the moon is getting closer to Earth. So
very close.
So that's what Liam Neeson's freaking out about. We don't learn this until like an hour and 10 minutes into the movie.
Yeah, no.
So Liam Neeson's freaking out. It's like, oh no, the balance. And it's all about like maintaining balance of the world. And then as the movie goes on, the whole thing's just about like, if Ponyo and Shosuke love each other for real, then she will turn human, and then balance will maintain in the world because she's no longer a fish. And and nobody brought their giant Soldier of Stone card to destroy the moon. So yes,
that was a complete oversight. Well,
so the thing is, if this was made for children like 5 years older than the target audience, we would have gotten that.
Yeah. Yes, but the entire second half of the movie, as you said, is based around Ponyo being out of the water, a fish out of water, and
the literal, literally a fish out of water story,
trying to pursue human life. And everybody that she meets is kind of like Sosuke like finds her and like she's now a human, and he's like, oh, that's weird, but whatever. And his mom is like, oh, that's weird, come in for dinner, whatever. So they're all kind of like very much accepting this, which I didn't mind. But as it goes, she just like, you notice that the world around them is kind of like
rising,
dying, or like the sea is like rising because like there's an imbalance in the equilibrium, which is I'm sure what Liam Neeson, Leslie Nielsen wanted to fix.
Exactly.
But then there is a weird part to all this, and I think the part that I didn't get, the disconnect for me.
Okay.
So near the end, when Ponyo's like, oh, I want to stay with Sosuke, and Sosuke's like, oh yeah, I love Ponyo and stuff. Like, let's hang out, let's be friends forever. Yeah. And Liam Neeson gets Ponyo back, and then he's like trying to like do some nefarious stuff to Sosuke, but it's unclear. But he just wants Sosuke to come back with him into the ocean, and Sosuke's wasn't
really nefarious. He just wanted him back in the ocean.
I guess
the old woman interpreted it as nefarious.
Yes, they thought it was, but I guess it wasn't. No. And then he took him down, and he was like, okay, now you have a big test, my little Sosuke. You have a big test to see if Ponyo could be a human and everything could go back to normal. And he's like, yeah, okay. And the whole test is, do you love Ponyo? And he's like, yeah. That was the end of the movie. There was no like, in my mind, there was very little climax at the end of there. Or maybe I'm missing something.
This is a typical Japanese story structure where once the movie is over, it's over.
Yeah, it just ended.
Well, no, here's the thing, because the ending made me laugh hysterically, because the whole thing was like, all right, once Ponyo's back up, because they put Ponyo in a little bubble.
Yep.
Very sandy cheek SpongeBob type thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they're like, all right, once you're back on the surface, kiss the bubble, and she's human again. And like, it's supposed to be a cute thing. He fumbles her, she falls on his mouth, and then she pops out of the bubble and turns into a human. That scene I remember a lot from the trailers.
Mm-hmm.
That scene happened. And then we get the Looney Tunes style zoom in circle thing where the rest of the screen goes black on their faces. Yeah. And then the movie just hard cuts to a choir of children singing Ponyo, Ponyo, little fishy in the sea. And I wanted to murder the film.
Ponyo, Ponyo, little fishy in the sea. Miyazaki, what have you done to me?
Exactly. And I'm just like, that song just started driving me nuts.
The song is... it is just ear rattling.
Well, no, it's a song clearly meant for little children. It was
of course.
Very similar to the Ultraman theme in that regard. A choir of children in this case, dubbing over the original Japanese, much like they did in Ultraman in the mid to late 60s. Mm-hmm. So it struck it struck me right away when they started doing that. I'm like, okay, I now know why no one's talked about this movie who's my age, because this was not meant for people my age.
Yes, that's right. It was not meant for people our age. And I feel like we've kind of gone through the whole thing, but what are your thoughts on it? Is it bad?
Honestly, yeah.
Oh, okay.
As far as children's media go, there's not a lot here.
Mm-hmm.
And my biggest thing is the biggest sin any children's media can create is when it feels like a film is just dangling keys in front of the children for an hour and a half. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And it was kind of cheap. It was a bunch of it looked, I will say, Shosuke's house, for example, it just looked like someone who was really good at drawing with colored pencils did 80% of the backgrounds for the movie. There was very little animation besides the main characters, and it wasn't that good, the animation itself here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they knew this was meant for young children and didn't feel like spending a ton of money.
Maybe
they just knew, they were like, all right, just make it cute. Don't worry too much about anything. Just go. Because like a lot of other animated properties I've seen, like this, the landscape around it, whether it's forest, city, some other thing, feels alive. There are little moving parts, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or it doesn't feel so static and dead.
I think that the animation, to me, it was bad in parts, but in my perspective, anything with water was very well done.
The water stuff looked good.
It looked incredible. Like when the water would at times like turn into fish and go back into water and stuff, I thought that shit was incredible. I was like, this is amazing. But like as what you said with like some of the backgrounds, it was, not a whole lot going on there.
It was cool the first time they did it, but by the 7th or 8th time, I was just so bored.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was just so, you have one great trick, sure, but it felt like a one-trick pony animation-wise. They only cared about the water.
Yeah, no, and the water they did very well. Like anywhere it came up, they did it well. Like when Ponyo was like running on waves, when there was like a big like tsunami situation, I thought that was like really well done. I actually was like, oh wow. I did say wow out loud. It was very nicely done. But as we said multiple times on this podcast, I'm definitely more of a plot guy, and
yes,
nothing was sensational about it. In a lot of ways. I don't think I can call it bad, though. I don't know. I think maybe I'm just... Because there's much better children's movies out there. And of course, like, I'm not a child, so maybe I can't, like, experience it to the fullest extent. But something you said did resonate with me about it being just a distraction for a few hours. Exactly. And it's not, like, you don't really... at least for me, I don't think a child would get a lot out of this. There wouldn't be... There's like a vague message that you can get if you read into it enough about like the environment. But I mean, what else really is there about it? Like there's really nothing...
You could show a kid Ferngully instead and get a better impact.
Right. There's nothing compelling. Like, I don't know if I was to compare this against some other children's movies. I swear, if I like rewatched The Lion King right now, I would say it's probably much better than this.
Oh, 1,000,000%.
So why don't I should maybe do that.
Because there's actual dialogue and stuff that matters in Lion King. There's a story.
There's a story.
But this was made for children younger than that. This feels like it was made for fucking preschool kids.
Yeah. Like just throw it on and just like brain drain for an hour and a half.
I mean, it's not Teletubbies level, but it's not far off.
Right. And it's not... It's definitely, I will say, out of the few Miyazaki movies that I have seen, it was a chore to get through and was my least favorite that I've seen. Even like, I liked Princess Mononoke better, shockingly, and I wasn't really high on that one either.
Well, not even shockingly. I mean, Princess Mononoke actually was, had stuff and a plot.
It had stuff
and
going
dialogue
on.
And characters.
Yes. This one did not. And yeah, it kind of did feel phoned in on that way. But I mean, to me, some of the animation was pretty incredible. So I mean, visually, it was compelling at times. Plot was not compelling. I'm not sure if I can like...
There was only a few scenes that looked good.
I thought there were more than that. But at least, I thought like, at least anytime there was a use of flooding or anything like that, I thought it looked great. But to your point, a lot of stuff in between didn't exactly... You could kind of tell it was just like, oh, whatever. Like, let's just put this in.
And that's what took me out of it so much. It felt so phoned in and whatever. And I'm just like, guys, I get it. You have your cool stuff. You have your high spots in there, but you got to put stuff in between.
And I want to mention, too, the way that you and I both consume this is that we both, at least at our phone call yesterday, we talked about this.
Yeah.
We both, at one point, about halfway through, stopped, went to do something else, and then came back to it later.
Yes, my original plan was to do this after dinner, but I put it off until I was going to bed. So I got through the first hour and said, I can go to bed now.
Yeah,
And I put my laptop down, went to bed. Then I opened my laptop and finished it the next, 30, 40 minutes, whatever it was.
Yep.
This morning, as I'm just waking up, and I'm like, you see, I thought the kind of spacey, dreamlike quality of just waking up would help me lock into that childhood kind of sensation or feeling, kind of the absence of societal context in the world around me. But no,
Nope.
I was just cranky and madder.
Yeah, and I watched the first 45 minutes at home, and then I just remembered just saying, I can't do this right now. And then I was actually falling asleep, and then I closed it, and then I left to do something else, and then 2 days later I came back, and I was like, oh yeah, I should finish that, and then I finished it. So, yeah, I mean, especially the first hour was, my God, so sleepy. It took a while to get through, and then there was no payoff in my perspective. There was no climactic end. It just kind of flopped, and then it was over, and then she's a human, and that's whatever. I would like to highlight my favorite line in this movie, though, before we leave.
This one was a good line.
Sosuke is at school, and this girl comes up to him and says, Sosuke, what are you doing? And Sosuke's like, I can't do anything right now. I'm really busy. And she says, you're not busy. You're five. And that was fantastic. There was also another one. Okay, when Sosuke's at the old folks' home, and he's like, yeah, my wound healed. The Ponyo licked it, and it's all better. One of the old ladies says, I'd let a fish lick me if it'd get me out of this wheelchair.
I forgot about that line, but I do remember that now that you mention it.
So funny. So there were, once again, very few nuggets of positives about this.
Yeah,
but
there's little snippets,
that it actually has personality, but the overarching aspects of it are not good and not a good time.
2 lines of dialogue, 2 moments where the film got edgy for no reason.
Yeah.
And a couple of good shots of animation.
Yeah.
That's all this film had. Over an hour and 40 minutes.
It was an outline. It was not a film.
No.
And I think I've kind of talked myself into saying it's bad, honestly.
I think you did too, because
I was like, it's not that bad, but other than the weird animation at times, other than the lack of a story, other than the fact of being boring, other than that, it's really not that. No, it's bad. Yeah, I guess it's pretty bad.
The fact you would just stop and finish it 2 days later.
Yeah. And the fact that I was very much drifting to sleep. Even girlfriend didn't make me fall asleep.
Yeah, that one just aggravated us.
It's bad.
That's right, everybody. The fun is over today. Thanks so much for clicking on the episode, but the fun does not have to stop here. You can hit us up anywhere that you can find us on Instagram or TikTok at badanimepod, or you can even email us to get in touch with us directly at badanimepod@gmail.com if you got any opinions or you just want to send some hate mail or love mail. We'll take both. We don't care. Thanks so much for listening, everybody, and have a great day.
Simple Equations Podcast Network.